This tutorial will take a look at group suppression. This is a piece of functionality where fields on a dynamic template can be set to move based on the behavior of other fields. In our example, we'll take a look at a business card where users have the ability to enter a phone number, a mobile number, as you can see over here on the right-hand side. They can also enter neither of these, or they can enter both of these. In each of these scenarios, the behavior of the surrounding text fields is set to change. Now, just to make sure we're absolutely clear, this is going to be set up and configured inside Infigo Invent and then transferred to MegaEdit. So our initial example, just to show you what we're trying to achieve here, we have two form fields controlling two matching fields on the artwork. So we have a phone number, we have a mobile number, a telephone number, and a mobile number. And then changing the numbers on here changes the numbers on the artwork. Now, when we remove the phone number, both the number itself and the corresponding letter T are removed as they're no longer required. In addition, the mobile number field moves to fill the space, so it's not just sitting in space over on the right-hand side. On the other hand, the removal of the mobile number removes both the number itself and the corresponding M, which would no longer be required from the artwork. The telephone section is not set to move here, as it's already in position. This is accomplished using the horizontal spread functionality, which we'll cover a little bit later. And then next we have horizontal and vertical spread. So removal of both the phone number and the mobile phone number means that the large empty space would be present here, which we may not want. This template has been configured in such a way so that in this instance, if I remove both the phone number and the mobile number, the address moves upwards to fill the void when neither phone number is entered. Okay, so that's our basic example. Let's actually take a look at how this is done. So I've set up the page here so that we can actually see our main tools. So we've got the main piece of artwork in the center of the screen. We've also got the Infigo Invent window over on the right-hand side. And I've also brought up the layers window, which is useful to us as well. The secret to group suppression in Invent is actually in the name, and that's groups. So this is an InDesign piece of functionality where fields on artwork can be grouped together. Infigo utilizes these groups to control their behavior within Infigo Invent, and we'll see how to create these groups a little bit later on. So you'll see, for example, if I click here, where we've just been modifying information, all of those fields are actually in the same grouped box. So they're still their individual fields if I click into it a little bit further. However, they are all grouped together. It's also a great idea to rename your groups and individual fields in the Layers tab over on the left-hand side. This isn't strictly necessary, but it will make your life a lot easier going forward. It's important to note as well about nested groups. So groups can be created containing other groups. And we will use these within Infigo Invent to fine-tune the behavior of different parts of our template. So for example, in our little sample that we've got here, we have several groups controlling the behavior mentioned at the start of this tutorial. So we have one that's called a telephone group, or that I've called a telephone group, which I can highlight here, which contains the T letter and the actual telephone number field itself. And the creation of this group allows us to ensure that both will disappear when a number is not entered, so we can group the behavior of those together. We have another group that we've called the mobile group. So this contains the letter M as a separate field and the mobile number itself. And that has got similar behavior to the other telephone. So basically, if we get rid of the number here, we want both of those fields to disappear. So that's why we group them together. We then have the combined telephone group, which I've called the all phone group. And this contains the telephone group and the mobile group. And this allows us to ensure that one group will be repositioned when the other is not displayed. So this horizontal spread behavior, or vertical spread we can do as well, can be controlled by grouping fields or other groups together. So you can relate the behavior to one another. And then the last group that we have here is what I've called the main group, which is all of the fields which we're looking at in this case. And this allows us to ensure that the address field is going to move up if no telephone numbers are entered. Now, as we've been seeing, each of these groups can be selected or renamed within the layers field over on the left-hand side. So if I go to the mobile group or the phone group, for example, if I click twice, that comes up with a renaming option, and I can give that a new name. Now, in order for a group to be controlled by Infigo Invent, everything within that group, so all the fields and all of the nested groups, must be set to be enabled within the Invent Properties tab. So for example, if I select one of my groups here and go to Properties and Invent, you can see that that group has its own separate page, and it is enabled in my case. Everything within the group needs to be enabled in order for that to display, to be able to function. Enabling this also gives us access to the spread behavior and master behavior, which we'll cover shortly. Okay, so let's take a look at applying some of this behavior to the top section of the business card. So where we've got the name, we've got the title, and we've got the 2 email fields. So we're going to begin this process by creating our email group, which contains both the letter E and then the actual email field itself. Now what we do here is multi-select the fields of interest, right-click, and select group. That will create a new group for us, but we can see by default that it's given a very non-user-friendly name. So what we can do to make it easier for ourselves is come over to the layers page and rename the new group that's just been created. Now if I deselect and reselect it again, we can see that name has been taken over to Infigo Invent. So we want to make sure this is enabled, so click on Enable. You won't be able to get to this, just as a reminder, if both of the fields contained within that group are not also enabled. So if I dig into this a little bit and take a look at both E, which I can see is enabled, and email, which again I can see is enabled. If I disable one of those, and then try and click on the group, you can see that I'm not able to enable the group separately. Now what we're going to do next is to set a group master. So setting a group master means that the behavior of the master field will be mimicked by the other fields in the group. So here, by setting the email field to be the group master, just by clicking here, and making sure that we have hide if placeholder is empty selected, we can ensure that should no text be input into that email field, then both it and the E field will be removed. So basically this E section here is subservient to the group master, which is email. Next, we're going to create a larger group by multi-selecting a few items here. And this group is going to contain the name, the title, and our newly created email group. And we can create that group in exactly the same way, just by multi-selecting, right-click, and say group. And again, I'm just going to give this a new name. So here, the behavior we wish to achieve is that fields reposition on the artwork if space is available. So in our particular case here, we wish for the email group to move upwards if the title field has no text contained within it and therefore doesn't need to exist. This is controlled by something called spread behavior, where you can select vertical, horizontal spread, or both, so vertical and horizontal spread. And this option will ensure that the fields can move in the selected axes if the space is available to do so. So here, for example, we can select this from no spread to vertical spread, as we're working vertically in this case. And this is, of course, because our required range of motion is a vertical movement only. And in terms of our basic functionality here, that's all we're actually going to need. So I'm just going to go ahead now and export this particular template and import it into MegaEdit.